Pop-punk has its naysayers among punk fans, although saying nay is sort of the go-to move for some punks. However, there are a lot of fine bands out there that fall under the nebulous definition of pop-punk. In fact, you could argue that the Ramones, one of the first punk bands, was also one of the first pop-punk bands. Many groups over the years have combined the propulsive sensibilities of punk with the bright sheen of pop, and here is our version of the best pop-punk band. Blink-182. One of the most prominent bands to emerge from the Southern California punk scene, Blink-182 gained mainstream success in the early 2000s. Arriving in the wake of the pop-punk explosion set off by Green Day, Blink gained a large fan base with their hooky, high-energy songs. At a time when competition with teen pop and nu metal was not unheard of, they broke through with their third album in 1999's Enema of the State, releasing a steady stream of hits, bolstered by humorous, tongue-in-cheek music videos that were popular in the waning days of MTV's musical programming. Though the pop-punk trend faded, Blink have remained chart favorites, scoring 5 top 10 albums and 2 number 1 Billboard 200 hits, including 2016's California. Green Day. Since the early 90s, Bay Area trio Green Day has been one of the most celebrated and successful bands in the world, infiltrating the mainstream with their snarling, energetic, and highly melodic brand of pop-punk. From the start, the band took notes from the anarchic attitudes and loud, fast, snotty approach of jittery late 70s punk acts like the Jam and Sham 69, but elevated their blasting sound with pop elements like catchy hooks, tightly arranged song structures and beatlesque vocal harmonies. This winning combination made their 1994 major label debut Dookie an enormous breakthrough hit, serving as an entry point to punk for many listeners who were coming of age when it first blasted up the charts. As they soldiered through the ensuing decades, Green Day matured without losing any of the lawless attitude they'd built their sound on, reaching a career peak with 2004 album American Idiot, and expanding their sound to include nods to glam rock, soul, and larger-than-life arena rock on their 13th studio album 2020's Father of All. Jimmy Eat World. Emerging as a trailblazing name in the mid-90s emo scene, Jimmy Eat World eventually found a larger audience by embracing a blend of alternative rock and power pop that targeted the heart as well as the head. The band's influence widened considerably with 1999's Clarity, an album that has since emerged as a landmark of the emo genre, but it was the group's follow-up in 2001's Bleed American, and the infectious single The Middle that broke them into the commercial rock mainstream. The emo label proved difficult to shake throughout the 2000s, even when subsequent top 10 albums Futures in 2004 and Chase This Light in 2007 did little to evoke the hard-edged sensitivity of Clarity. But Jimmy Eat World still remained a league above the generation of genre torchbearers they helped spawn. Settling into comfortable veteran status in the 2010s, the band continued to issue reliable top 20 efforts, rounding out the decade with their 10th album in 2019 Surviving. Saves the Day. Perfecting their power pop, rock since the mid-90s, New Jersey's Saves the Day helped forge the path for an entire sect of pop embracing emo. Turning away early on from a melodic hardcore style, the band developed a brand of hooky songwriting, vulnerable lyrics, and a distinctively angular vocal style on albums like 1999's Through Being Cool and their commercial peak 2001's Stay What You Are. The band would continue to evolve, shifting lineups and experimenting with different styles as time passed, but their early output influenced waves of emo pop acts for years to come. Jawbreaker. Independently minded and adhering to the old-school DIY punk mentality, West Coast punk pop trio Jawbreaker's street-smart yet poetic lyrics, spirited musicality, and marathon live shows put them a cut above contemporaries like Green Day and Blink. After a series of EPs and singles, guitarist-singer Blake Schwarzenbach, bassist Chris Bauermeister, and drummer Adam Fowler released the band's debut album titled Unfun in 1989. Independent label San Francisco Tupelo, Communion signed the group the following year, releasing Bivouac in 1991 and their breakthrough record, 24-Hour Revenge Therapy in 1993. Buzzcocks. With their crisp melodies, Pete Shelley's biting lyrics, and Shelley's and Steve Diggle's driving guitars, Buzzcocks were one of the most influential bands to emerge in the initial wave of British punk rock. Largely eschewing politics, they instead brought an intense, brilliant vigor to the 3-minute pop song, powered by Shelley's alternately funny and anguished lyrics about adolescence and love, backed by melodies and hooks that were concise and memorable. They released 2 albums in 1978 that tightened up and refined their sound, then delivered the more experimental A Different Kind of Tension in 1979 before the fast pace of their career and problems with their record label led them to break up in 1981. When Buzzcocks reformed in 1989, they launched a long string of tours and albums that exhibited the same spirit the group had shown from the start, starting with 1993's Trade Test Transmissions and continuing to The Way in 2014, which was Shelley's last album with the band before his 2018 death. After a short break, Diggle rallied the troops and went on, touring and releasing an LP titled Sonics in the Soul in 2022. Descendants. Fueled by rejection, food, coffee, girls, fishing and food, the Descendants sprang up during the halcyon days of the Los Angeles punk scene. Fusing the blind rage of hardcore with an unexpectedly wry, self-deprecating wit and a strong melodic sensibility that set them distinctly apart from their West Coast brethren, they gradually emerged as one of the most enduring and adored punk bands of their time. While the band seemingly celebrated their own immaturity in their most iconic music, they also found a way to grow up and continue to make music that pleased themselves and their fans well past 2020. 1982's Milo Goes to College was their first and most enduring masterpiece. 2004's Cool to Be You was a strong, lively reunion effort, and 2021's Ninth and Walnut looked back to their earliest days, revisiting a handful of forgotten songs. Taco Cat. The Seattle quartet Taco Cat combined the DIY attitude of punk with a humorously insightful lyrical approach that delves deeply into pop culture and politics, both personal and large-scale. They started off releasing their own records, but soon ended up recording for hometown label Hardly Art, with 2014's NVM heralding their arrival. Their sound evolved from its scrappy punk beginnings to become more assured, and by the time of 2019's This Mess Is a Place, the group added 80s pop and 90s grunge elements to their approach. Rancid. One of the cornerstone bands of the 90s punk revival, Rancid's unabashedly classicist sound and image drew heavily from the Clash's early records, echoing their left-leaning politics and fascination with ska, while adding a bit of hardcore crunch. The group's early albums had an undeniable energy that won them many Mohawked fans. With their third record in 1995's titled And Out Come the Wolves, they became a platinum-selling act with mainstream appeal. Instead of jumping to a major label, Rancid stuck with Epitaph and the creative freedom it allowed them. They formed their own offshoot label, Hellcat, to give new bands a platform, embarked on solo careers and kept on releasing albums, some built for dingy punk clubs, some full of stadium-sized anthems. Through it all, the band stayed true to their punk roots, even as they celebrated their 25th anniversary in 2017 with the release of their 9th full-length effort titled Troublemaker. The Bouncing Souls. The Bouncing Souls are an American punk band from New Brunswick, New Jersey, formed in 1989. By the time of their acknowledgement by the national punk rock scene, they had reignited a pogo element to New Jersey punk rock by playing fast, light-hearted songs, a model followed by various other local bands. The four original members grew up in Basking Ridge, New Jersey and played in smaller bands while attending Ridge High School. Although they decided to forego college, they made the decision to move to a college town, New Brunswick, which is the home of Rutgers University. New Brunswick had a reputation for supporting underground music, and over the years had seen not only musical acts but actors enjoy professional success. The Bouncing Souls not only became a staple in the New Brunswick music scene, but also helped other bands gain an audience by opening up for them in the clubs around town, as well as parties and shows they put on themselves. The band's name is a derivative of Doc Martens shoes, specifically their advertising slogan with Bouncing Souls.